Okay, now I can see that screen
Yay!
session.
Screens are good. So on the left side, if you notice, the first one says L colon, which is the library module only. So there are a bunch of codes on here, so that when I put the instructions on this page and further pages on the right side, I can get all that text onto one or two lines. So I can basically get everything on one slide that needs to come across. So I'm going to be talking about this as we kind of go along, but you guys with your PDF that you got last night in your email, this has been updated slightly. I've updated about 7 or 8 things just to make it flow a little bit better, and I was a little bit more exact in a couple words I was using. Uh, but guys, basically, if Lightroom really does two things. And Rob, to your point, my understanding is Photoshop Elements does them as well. And that is file management and photo editing. So the very first module we're going to be talking about is the library module. And that's the module where all the file management takes place. That's where you can create folders, you can rename the folders, you can search, and you can do a bunch of other things, and that all takes place in the library module. Now it drives me crazy because I wish there was a smoother transition because some of the things do flow back and forth nicely, but other things you got to get out of the photo editing module, which is the develop module, go over to the other one and come back. And it's not terribly difficult, but it just kind of breaks your thought a little bit. Like for example, if you notice on the left side, it says B colon, works in both. This is letting you know that whatever is presented on the right side, it applies to both the library and to the develop module as well. So on the right side, the third bullet down, it says B colon, review and turn each photo. You can do that in the library module and also in the develop module. What Lightroom is trying to do whenever you do an import, it wants you to do all the file management stuff before you go on over to the develop module. But you can do both in both of them. I tend not really to use the library side when I import my photos. I just do everything in the other module. But there's some good things to point out while we're here. And if it's okay, we'll just get started and kind of look at the library module. So here is the library module. If you notice on the left side, this is the folder structure. So all the folders that I have basically put under the Master Blaster folder, which is called Lightroom 2021 Managed Photos Video. Everything I have in Lightroom is under this one. And the reason I do that is whenever I do backups, all I do is in my backup software, I say backup this photo and everything underneath it and put it on my external hard drive. So that's the reason why the photo structure is there. I recommend that you click on navigate and you can just pop it open and it'll show it. But there's really no reason to have the navigate on in the library, so I just keep it closed. But in the other module, uh, on the on the develop side, you'll see that there's a real value to doing it. But the thing I wanted to show you right away is when you guys are in here and you're doing what we call a loop view, which is a full frame, versus a grid view, which is a series of photos going across. In this view, there's a lot of times that you just want to zoom. And Lightroom will remember the last two zoom clicks you've done. And whenever you click with your mouse or you hit the space bar, it will just toggle between those. Like for example, I'm going to click on the word fit right up there in the top left-hand corner. And the second click, I'm going to click on 100%. So you guys cool on what I just did? I clicked on
Yeah.
fit and I clicked on 100. So now when I'm
Okay.
on the photo and I click, you see it just went back to the fit in the screen view. And on the photo, when I click again, it goes right to 100. So it's a real easy way of going back and forth as you're kind of going around within the photo. This film strip is basically all the photos that Joy took Saturday when we were all out at Marietta Square. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what the photos are on the bottom. So there are times when you're in library and you kind of get confused where you are. If you notice, we're up at the very top, but I want to go back down to the folder. You can right click on any image here and go to the folder in the library. And bing, bada, boom, we just jumped straight down to where that folder was. For a time, Joy and I met with some of our relatives at a concert here in Roswell. But the one that we want to do is for 2021, right here, Joy's Marietta visit. So these are all the photos that she went through. Now, Rob and Chuck, what I'm recommending that you do, and please understand that I try and follow my own advice, is basically use the 3-star method of going through your photos. So I'm looking at this photo here, and I'm looking at it, and it's not sharp. I click on the next one. So I know this is the only one shot that Joy took. Even though it's not sharp, I know that Joy wanted to keep the words, so I want to keep this folder, this photo.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
here's the scheme that I use, Rob. One is
Yeah.
for
I'm
throw it away, 2 is for keep it, and 3 is it's really, really special and I need it for something else. So my question to you guys, are you cool so far?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense.
Okay, so I'm going to go through this folder and I know Joy wants to keep it. So I'm going to press the number. What number would I press, Chuck? 1, 2, or 3?
She wants to keep it too.
You got it. So guess what? On the keyboard, I pressed the number 2. Did you see where it flashed up and it said set ratings to 2?
Yeah, set to 2.
And if you look on the very bottom of this little, I'll make this a little bit bigger just to help you guys kind of look at it. When you're down here in the lower bottom left corner of that image, you can see it's got 2 stars right there. So I'm
Yeah,
looking across.
okay.
I know that the next one is the other side of the statue there. And Joy wants to keep this one. So what would she hit? 1, 2, or 3?
2.
Okay. So I'm going to go to the next folder and I'm looking at these 2 folders and this one seems to be not as much in focus. So if I want to delete that one, what number would I hit? Chuck?
Number 1.
You got it. And on this one, I just want to make sure we keep something in the folder, Rob. So what number would I hit
Yeah.
to here? Would 2
You
work?
want to keep something in the folder, so you don't want to
Yeah.
delete it out.
Yeah, so on this one, I deleted because it wasn't quite as sharp as this one, but I do want to keep one of them, so I'd choose what number here.
I guess 2.
You got it. And so we would go on and on throughout all of the photos that are here. And if you notice with the strand, she's got this one, she's got this one, and she's got this one. Now, if she wants to keep all 3, let's say, for example, Joy is just really, really excited about strand and she wants to keep all 3 of them. Now, you guys have broken the code that I can hit the number 2, then the right arrow, hit the number 2, hit the right arrow, go to the next one, hit the number 2. But I want to show you kind of a neat shortcut within Lightroom. If you click on the very first one, and Chuck, do you remember last night? What key do I hold down when I click on the last one to basically pick all 3 of them here?
Control.
So
Control.
the shift key?
Yeah, the shift key or yeah.
So I'm going to click on the shift key. And Rob, do you notice how all three are highlighted? So with all three
10,
highlighted, whatever
You're
key,
talking about 10, 11, and talking about 10, 11, and 12?
yeah.
Yeah.
So if I want to keep all these, I just press the number 2. And bing, bada, boom, I didn't have to click on it 3 times. So you can go through and kind of quickly pick your photos. And kind of like Hylos brought up last night, let's say Joy wants to keep this one, doesn't like this one, but likes this one. So I click on the first one that I want to keep. Because there's something in between that I don't want, I would hold down the control key and click on the third one. Do you see how it did not pick the one in the center? So with the control key, you click on all the ones that you want to keep. And then as she wants to keep it, so I press the number 2 and bing, bada, boom, they're all picked there. Okay, so you guys kind of comfortable with laying down stars?
Yep.
Okay. Here's the reason why
Okay.
the stars. I'm sorry, what, Rob?
No, I say, okay, I'm good with that.
Okay. Here's the reason why the stars really kind of help you. So if you think about it, anything that has 2 stars or higher is something that you probably want to work in Lightroom. And anything 1 or less, you will probably wipe out or clean out. So right here on the strip, and I'm hoping you guys can see this because this is very nice. I'm going to click on the second star and look what it did. So all those photos that I had marked with 2 stars, and I clicked on some other ones before this, but see how so all of a sudden all that extra stuff I didn't mark and had 1 star just kind of fell by the wayside. So I'm able to kind of focus my attention just on this right here. So I'm going to uncheck the 2 stars and I'm going to go back where you guys can see everything. And we're going to get to a segment here where Joy took some pictures at the Marietta train station, which was literally, as you guys know, right off the square on the backside.
Yeah, sure.
So Joy's looking at this and she says, nah, it doesn't work. So Chuck, what key do I press?
1.
I press the right arrow to go to the next one. She says, okay, I want to keep this one. What key do I press, Rob?
2.
Got it.
2.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on this one, she can kind of see the car going across the tracks and she says, nah, I don't want that guy. So she presses the number 1. She comes to this one. There's a car on the track again, probably the same one, just another click. Could or could not be another one. And she doesn't want this. She presses 1. So are you guys seeing how you can kind of quickly go through your photos and throw away the ones
Yes,
that you
definitely.
don't want to keep? And
Yes.
because you got this little magnifying glass working, let's say you come to the next photo and you're saying, hey, this one kind of works for me. I think I want to keep it, but I'm not sure if Marietta Welcome Center is in focus. Well, just click on the sign and you look at it and it looks pretty darn sharp to me. So Joy says, I'm going to make this one a number 2. And then she goes over, da 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 da. She went by the farmer's market and she found these peppers and she says, you know what? I really want to keep this one. This one looks pretty good. So she presses the number 2 and she looks at the next one. She says, darn, this one looks good too. I don't know which one that I don't want to keep, so I'm going to keep both. I think you'll find out there's a lot of times you're going to be doing the same thing. You just don't want to make a rash judgment. So Joy says, let's kill this puppy. No, let's keep it. So she hits number 2. She moves over to her cherries and she says, is that in focus? She zooms in and finds out, nope, it's not in focus. So Chuck, what do you think you would do?
1.
Got it. So she clicks at the next one. Even though it looks really, really nice, I'm just kind of going through the entire screen here. And Joy just picked up my camera like an hour before this, and I've got the back button focus, so she kind of forgot about it. So she says I'm gonna delete that one as well. We're going to fast forward here a little bit to the brick houses, which you'll see will come to play here in just a little bit. So the first one she's got, she looks at it and she realizes that she didn't get the full brick on both sides. It's really wonky. And she says, I don't want this puppy. So she presses the number 1 and she gets to this one and she says, I can't believe I left my umbrella in the photo. But she says, I want to keep this one. So Rob, a keeper for the last time is number
2.
Got it. So I'm going to go back and click on our filter so that we only see those that are number 2 or higher. And this starts us off for the evening. So for the very first photo we're going to do here, and again, this is kind of magic. Rob, Chuck, I know, stayed the full afternoon. I'm not sure. Did you have to leave just a little bit early, or were you there the full time?
I left about 2, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I was on sensory overload. I was just.
No, I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one thing that came up with Umit. So right now, I finished doing all my photo editing except for I want to go through and set a keyword tag for all these photos that I have here. So I'm going to hold down, I could hold down the shift key on the last one, go all the way to the front and hit the shift key, click, move the front and hit shift. But I know I can do Control A, which is used in Windows, it's used in Excel, it's used everywhere to say you want to pick everything. So I'm going to do Control A. So all these photos are highlighted. So again, I am in the library now. So Joy wants to remember that this took place in Marietta. And it was tied to a CPS field trip. Whenever you put a comma in between two things, you're basically saying, I want to create 2 keyword tags. So when I get finished with this, I can go and click up on the top folder within the folder and I can search through my entire large photos and pull up anything that has either Marietta or CPS field trip. I just abbreviate field trip FT. So that's how that goes. So I just type
Can I
in.
ask a question on that?
Sure.
You don't need to put a space between the comma and the next word?
No. In fact, Chuck, that's a good question because you can go into preferences and you can actually do that.
Oh,
Or
okay.
you can say it's something else is the separator. But as a default, I believe it's like semicolon, a comma, and something else is a separator.
Okay. That
Okay,
makes sense.
guys, it's really this easy. I just press enter. And watch what happens when I click on image 11. See how it has the keywords in there? I'm going to click on image 7. Got the keywords in there. So all these photos that were highlighted now have these keyword tags in it. So let's go through and see how all this works. So I'm going back up. It's been 3 years. It's the year 2024. And I want to see all of the images I have with the keyword CPS FT. So I'm going to, at the very top of the library, if you go up here, it has a search function. So I'm going to go through and click on text. And I'm going to say, I want to see all my photos that have the keyword CPS FT. So if you notice, these are all the photos that Joy took that we just highlighted. And back here a little bit earlier, remember a couple weeks ago, the club had a field trip out to the Beltline and to Piedmont Lake? These are all photos from that day because I assigned the keyword tag to these photos for that. So this is all that and from that day. And if you look at the thing, you can see there's a lot more field trips that I have in here. This is when Umit and I went up to Brasstown Bald and we did the Starry Trails in the Milky Way. So that's where that came from. So it's a really quick and easy way for you guys to search your entire big folder. So Rob, whenever I work with you and we go through and we set this up, keyword tags are pretty good for stuff that you really think that you'll want to look for. For example, I have a keyword tag for family. I also have one for Joy's mom, Zeph. So anytime I want to see all the photos for Zeph, I would just type up at the very top here, instead of CPSFT, I would just type Zeph. So are you guys cool with it?
It's fantastic. I mean, I can see, you see what let me kind of speak. I've been struggling with getting pictures of my dog for this book. And what I do is I got a folder, Roscoe. And if it's Roscoe, I put it in that folder. But it's just, it's so basic and so limited. You know, this is really eye-opening, seeing how these photos can all be organized and cataloged.
Yeah, so again, in summary, we're going to wave goodbye at this folder here in about 38 seconds. So all the file management stuff takes place in the library. But for right now, we're in the photo editing mode. We've got the film strip. There's still a boatload of images. Joy has not assigned a 1, 2, or 3, 2. But we know she went through the entire thing and she did mark everything that she wanted to keep a 2 and anything that was super duper good a 3. So I'm going to click on the second star, and the little algebra thing here is if you click on it, you can change if it's equal to 2 or if it's less than or equal to, but typically I leave it on greater than 2. So we got it here. Here's the first example. So we are in the develop mode, and here's our first of 3 photos that we're going to work this evening. So Chuck, you've gone through this. So what tool in the should I use up here?
I want to use the crop first.
You got it. Hey Rob, are you ready for a little bit of magic?
I'm ready.
Okay. So Chuck, what do I click now?
Well, you want to straighten it, so you have to do the straightener tool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you cool? You ready for this? I'm going to click and
Okay.
drag along a line that I know is straight or was straight in the original photo. It's just how Joy took it at an angle. It's off a little bit. So I clicked and I dragged the mouse across. I'm going to release the mouse and look at that. Is that cool?
Wow, that's great.
So it went through and it took all the other stuff, it straightened it based on what I asked it to do. Now there are 2 ways to get out of all the tools. One way is within here when you got the hand, is just do a quick double click. Or you can go to the bottom right hand corner and see how it's got the word done here.
Yes.
I wish they had the button where it would say, I be done, but I had to settle for done. So I'm going to click on done, and there it is. Whew. If my mom could only-
I learned something that when I was trying to work on something. Don't hit the reset button because that wipes everything out.
Right.
Yeah, you're right about that. So Rob, looking at this photo, how would you crop this even further so that it would have more of a graphical impact? Let's say that you want to crop out, so we're going to turn on the crop tool. I would like for you just to let me know what you think we could kind of narrow in and crop down so it's only about the peppers.
I think I would crop out the top basket.
Okay? And how about the sides?
You can bring them in, tighten them up, so you have
Okay.
just a little bit of a gray border around that basket. So yeah,
How's that, Rob?
at least uh, I think I would bring the left side in a bit more.
Okay. Is that good?
So,
I'm just trying to look and make sure it's the same margin on both sides.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of all about balance and stuff. Okay, so I want to turn off the tool and to accept my changes. What are the two ways that I have to finish off with the tool? Chuck, what's one of them?
Click, click the hand twice or hit done.
Double click. You're absolutely right. And
Um,
Rob, what's the other way you can commit your changes?
is there a refresh button?
No.
No, no. Well,
Done.
enter,
Remember
enter.
IB?
Done.
When I enter will do it though.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm just
Okay.
trying to tell you, uh, Hylos with some of the tools, enter does work, but I just found overall double click works all the time.
Okay.
And the other thing is just click IB done here on the bottom, and there we go.
Okay, yeah, I'll be done.
So is that looking pretty good? Now
Yeah.
here's the original so far. Here's where we are. All we've done is crop. That's it. That's all we've done. So, are you guys ready to move on to the adjustment tools?
Yes.
Sure.
I'm excited.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so as we go across, let me just kind of talk about them and we'll do them. One is the spot removal tool. We'll do that here in about 8 or 9 minutes. With the red eye, I've never used. The radio filter is great when you have a sky and you just want to darken the sky a little bit. And we will do that in session 2 with the lighthouse out of Tybee. This one is called radio filter. This one, instead of doing it like a graduated filter, like you would slip over the front of your lens, this one is a radio one. So you draw a circle. Everything in the circle uh, will be however you want it. Everything out the circle will be a darker color, and you can swap that. So inside it's
Excuse me,
dark.
so I don't see where these tools are.
It's right here.
Uh,
I am wiggling my mouse, man. Right here.
I see Rick.
So Rob, it's on the right side here. And Rob, you got Lightroom Classic open to where you can follow along on your screen.
I'm not sure if it's open. Just a minute. Okay. I'm looking at your screen now. Is that
Okay.
it?
Yeah, yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah. Why don't you forget yours and watch his for a
Yeah,
while.
sure. Okay. That's
Yeah,
fine, yeah.
I think that may be better for right now.
Okay.
Okay, so guys, these are known as the local adjustment brushes or tools, and the one at the radio we talked about is like if you want to darken a sky and a big vista in a landscape, or if you have a big body of water and you want to lighten it. So if you have something that's kind of broad this way and you want to affect everything within it, it's a real good tool. And the radio right here is just a tool to where you can kind of lighten things as well. So if you notice, I'm drawing a circle right now. And if I move the circle, I can move it over the basket just a little bit so that everything I'm doing is kind of affecting just the basket. Or the other way around, you can flip it. But for right now, I really don't want to go there. So I'm going to turn off that tool. And the one I want to use is the final one that's called the adjustment brush. Obviously, the letter A was taken up with something else because it's K. So go figure. I mean, as far as the keyboard shortcut. So within this one, what the brush is saying, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. So Chuck, this is something I didn't cover very good last night. So at the very bottom of the brush, there are ways you can go through and change the size of your brush.
Right.
Are you guys seeing how it's getting bigger?
Mhm.
Yes.
And I can change the feather, which means that the transition point between what's hard and fast I'm trying to move and kind of feather it on out. So it's a little bit soft as it goes out. And the final one is the flow. I typically leave my feather on about 26 or so. And the size I adjust with my mouse wheel. So I'm moving my wheel up and down and it does it. So I never really come down here. But the flow is very important. I leave my flow on like about 60. And what that means is whatever I'm doing, about 6/10 of the effect is applied to the image. If I slammed it all the way up to 100, what do you think it would happen, Chuck?
The feather, it would, it would
Yeah.
feather everything out.
I mean, yeah. So the feather, you're right. And if I do it with the flow, that means I just turn the faucet all the way open, right?
Mhm.
And if I move it back down, that means I'm tightening the faucet and less water's coming out. So I found from experience, I leave it on about 60. Here's an important one that I didn't show you guys last night, and it's the auto mask. I strongly recommend that you leave this checked. If you have an older system, Chuck, you just I would keep using it until it makes you cry, and then I would uncheck it because the auto mask is very strong, and it helps you pick stuff without going crazy. So I check my auto mask on, and this is all that you really have to fool with down here. So I'm going to go back up to the top. I still have the adjustment brush checked. Whenever you guys have one of these tools turned on, there'll be a series of dots going around, or it'll have a white rim or something. So you see as I go off, see how they kind of get highlighted just a little bit? That's basically letting you know what tool you've got picked. So right now I've got the adjustment brush. Think of it this way. If I were to apply adjustments to this photograph that Joy shot, and then went to this photo and started using the adjustment brush, do you think it would take the same settings and apply them on this one?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Uh,
So what I'm hoping you guys will get in the habit of, whenever you open up the adjustment brush, just click on New and then double click Effect. What that does is it resets all of the sliders you have back to 0. So you don't have to worry about doing something and then halfway through you realize that, oh my God, these are not my settings. And then you go through and do it. So if you just get in the habit of kind of wringing out your paintbrush before you start on a new photo, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So on this photo, I would like to darken the peppers down just a little bit. So which of the sliders here do you think I would use to kind of start to bring down the overall lightness of this image?
Well, first of all, exposure.
Yep,
Need to
you
bring
got
it
it.
down just a little bit.
I'm just going to do a little bit, about half a stop. What's another slider that kind of goes with exposure?
Highlights
Uh,
or shadows.
Actually, highlights is good. I'm going to do this only because of the reflections on the pepper. But the other one that I always do is shadows.
Right.
So if I'm trying to just kind of get things going here, so what I'm going to do is I'm rolling my mouse wheel. I'm making this just a little bit bigger. And I'm clicking once on the wheel. And as I go along, can you guys see how it's starting to get just a little bit darker?
Yep.
So I'm looking at this, and And Chuck is saying, well, Pat, why you do that? Why don't you sharpen at the same time? So if you notice down here, there's a thing called presence, and there's 3 sliders associated with sharpening. One is texture. It's a very fine adjustment. I almost always go up to about 20. The other one is clarity. I do about 15 or so, right around there. Dehaze I really don't fool with unless I have to. So I click the mouse again. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I can see it on mine, to where it's just making these peppers just a little bit sharper. And I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. So I'm going to shake the paint off of this brush. I'm going to double click on effect. And if you notice, what I did was I wiped out everything. Did you guys notice that? Because what did I forget to click on first?
No.
New.
Done.
So if I clicked on new, it would have kept my other one. So I'm going to be a little bit more extreme this time. I'm going to go to 2 stops under. I think everything else is just about fine.
Oh boy.
And watch what happens now when I start painting. See how it's a little bit more in your face and in a nice way? So it's making these peppers really kind of jump out a little bit, isn't it? And part of that is done to highlights. So if you notice, the highlights really kind of helps take the shine off of the peppers. So I'm just going to kind of go around one more time. I'm really working on the straw basket weave all the way around. And I may weave once or twice that way. So,
And you might mention that it's additive.
yep. Every time, Halos is absolutely right. Every time I do this and I let go of the mouse, it's going to say done. If I want to do it again and I click and do it again, it's going to add effects on top of it, which is good. I mean, that's how this stuff works. Because now, if you guys notice, is this area around the outside pretty bright?
Yep.
Makes your
It
eye
is a little bright.
kind of work to it. So because I'm on the same photo and everything, this time I'm going to click on New Effect, double click it, and I'm going to
New
drop it
effect.
down to about a 3. I'm going to take the blacks to kind of help out this time around. I don't care about texture because right now, you guys see what I'm doing?
Yep.
Darkening that border.
Is that nice or what?
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Now where's your eye going when you look at this basket?
Back to the basket.
So I'm just kind of going around kind of slowly. And if you guys make a mistake, remember you can go to history and just undo your last action or go back a couple. If you notice, there's one of the little veggies up here that the people caught last time. That was a little bit. Let me just a little bit more.
If you go to your history or the one that you want to do over or whatever, what do you do when you click on the history item? Do
Okay.
you delete or do you what?
No, actually, Chuck, this is a real good way just to kind of check and see what you did up until that step. If you notice, I'm going down to the very bottom. This is what we started out with. And then when I started,
Okay.
doing the brush strokes, we had already done the cropping. So Chuck, I think you're picking up on, I'm left clicking on these items as I'm going up and you can kind of see what's happening. So, and that's where we are right now.
So you just click on what you're doing and then that way you can make the adjustments at that level.
Yep.
I got you. I got you.
And to be honest with you, there's a couple of times I've gone through and done this. Hi, Lois, I just realized that I used the wrong one, but that's okay.
Wrong one, what?
A wrong picture of Joy's peppers, but it's fine. We'll just keep on rocking.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I want to show you is this thing called the spot removal. This is great when you're doing portraits and your subject has got a couple little spots that you want to clean up on her face. I would recommend when you click on it that you never use clone. Always use heal. Here's what the difference is. When you do clone, it's like taking a pair of scissors and cutting out a section, and then when you want to put it on another area, you're just copying it over exactly. When you hit heal and you do that area down here, whenever you go and you apply it to the area, like the white circles on the bottom right, it takes into account what the texture is of what you're doing it. In other words, it's a lot nicer effect. Right now it's all black, so it really doesn't matter. But I'm going to click on this white dot right here. Can you guys see what I'm getting ready to do?
Yes,
Rob, are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
Okay, I clicked on it one time. Where'd that spot go?
Bye-bye.
Is that pretty cool? So I'm going to click on these little spots right here. And it's a really nice way to kind of go through. And if you got some strong points that are kind of happening here, you can go through and clean them up as well. So this is about as far as you can take it in Lightroom. But I like for you guys just to throw back in your chair just a little bit and watch what you can do in Photoshop just to kick it just a little bit more. Okay, so we want to jump into Photoshop, and just like Judy said last night, Pat, how did you do that? Is you take your image and you right click and you go to one that says Edit in Adobe Photoshop. You guys seeing it right there?
Mhm.
Yeah,
So right now it's going to ask me, do I want to keep it with all the Lightroom adjustments? And it's like, well, yeah. And I'm going to click on Edit. And so now it's basically taking a copy of this image, it's giving it up to Photoshop, and this is called round tripping. So whenever you get finished in Photoshop and you exit out of it and you save the file, you don't have to worry about saving the name or anything. All you do is just exit out and click yes, and it creates another copy and brings it back down into Lightroom. It's very, very cool. Rob, do you have your seatbelt on?
I do.
Okay. I'd like to introduce in Photoshop a thing called the Object Selection Tool. This is fairly new. It's been the last year or two. I think, Hylos, it's been about that long. It's the Object Selection. So when you click on this and draw a box around whatever you want it to say is the object, Photoshop's pretty good. It's going to find it. Are you guys able to see the marching ants going around the edge here?
I do.
Yes,
I mean, that's marvelous. So Photoshop went through. I told it, hey, what I want is within this box I drew. And it's coming back and he says, Pat, everything within the marching ants is what you told me to pick. And I just go like, yes, you did it. But we're going to do something a little bit different. This is all in your notes if you want to do it. Otherwise, just sit back and be amazed. I'm going to do Shift, Control, and I, which is inverse. So I'm basically saying, I don't want what you thought was selected. I want everything else. And you're going to see why here in just a moment. So I'm going to look at the foreground and the background colors here in Photoshop. And the background color, which is the one on the bottom, is black. That's exactly what I want. But I'm going to make a mistake here, and I'm going to switch them. If you notice, green is the background color now. Are you guys all seeing that?
Yep.
Watch what happens when I press Control and the backspace. See how I
now
filled
you
it
gotta
in
do
with
that.
green? So what I'm trying to show you here, and this is actually not a bad color.
Yeah, it is.
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back, and I want black to be the filler around, so I'm going to swap the color with the background. I'm going to press Control Backspace, and bing bada boom, there you go. While I'm here, I'm going to click on this little pyramid thing. It's called the Sharpen tool. I really like Photoshop Sharpen tool even better than Lightroom's. So I'm just going to take a little trip around while I'm here and just do a little bit more sharpening. It really does a nice job, but you have to be kind of careful. If you look up at the top toolbar here, do you see at the top where it says strength 41%?
Yeah.
So that means as I'm doing this sharpen tool, it's applying about 41% of the full force of the sharpen tool. I'm not sure how I did this or why I did this. I typically have this one on about 20%, 25%. So I'm not sure why it jumped on me like that, but it did.
Okay. Pat, question.
Yeah.
Do you do that with that in that stage, or do you have to invert back to the peppers? Because you're in the black. And will that sharpen the picture itself, or do you have to invert it back to do the peppers?
Chuck, next time I see you, I owe you either a cup of iced tea or a beer.
Iced tea would be fine.
Because you are absolutely right. Right now, it appears that my Photoshop is still trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. So it's kind of, if you notice, the circle is not going away. So we're going to jump back into Lightroom. But here's what I want to let you guys know is whenever this, Chuck, you're absolutely right. I need to get back, I need to invert it again. So when I apply the sharpen tool, it just sharpens what's in the basket.
Yeah.
Oh, and there it goes. So I'm going to do Shift Control I. While I'm doing this, because who knows, because it's going to take me forever to kind of do it again. These peppers are actually pretty sharp, so I didn't even really need to do anything. The problem is with my Photoshop is it takes a while because it takes a while. So to save some time, we're going to jump back into Lightroom, and then we'll come back to it in just a minute. So what I want to show you, Rob, is another tool, a couple of tools we have in Photoshop, in Lightroom, that I'd like to kind of run with right now. So this is one of the two images Joy thought she liked. She's looking at this one. She looks at this one, and she says, you know, I just like how this one feels a little bit better. But if you guys notice, you seeing how the buildings are not straight?
No.
So Rob, this one's
yeah.
on you.
Yeah. See that.
Chuck told you that if we want to use the straighten tool, we just use one of these tools up here. So which one is the straighten tool?
Straighten tool.
Remember it's there in the crop tool? And which of these icons down here do I click on to call up the straighten ruler?
The one that's got a picture of a level.
There you go. Rob, are you seeing that?
No.
Right here?
It's like down at the bottom of the screen?
No, it's right here.
No.
What you have to do is you have to click on the crop tool. In other words, if you click on another one, you're not going to see it. So you need to click on that crop tool right here.
Click on the crop tool.
And then I'm going to drop down to angle. And Chuck, I'm going to let you run with this. Tell me how to use this in this image.
You find a straight line in either the building or like that edge would be good.
Is that okay?
Bring the bottom in just a tidge.
How's that?
There you go.
And there you go, guys.
Yeah, okay, that looks much better.
Okay, so I'm done with the crop tool. How do I get out of here?
Double click or hit done.
Double click.
There you go. Looking good. So, Rob, we've got some work to do here. We want to lighten this area underneath the Marietta Welcome Center just a little bit. So which of these
Yeah.
tools would we use?
The shadows.
But which tool? Because remember, I just want to apply it to a certain area of the photograph. Would I use the spot removal or would I use the adjustment brush?
The adjustment brush.
You got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's an example here. So if I started using this brush right now, would it use these settings that I had last time I used it?
No.
Right. So Rob, what do I do to shake the paint out of the adjustment brush? Two things.
Is it? I be done?
Yeah, remember I hit new. So I'm
New,
telling it
okay.
I want a new paintbrush and I want to shake everything out of it. So I double click on effect, right? So you've noticed all the sliders.
Where is new? Where is new?
Right below the adjustment brush button,
Right here.
right exactly below.
I don't. So where's the adjustment brush button? I don't see that either.
Okay. Are you in the develop module?
I think so.
Okay, so you got white up here.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's got to be here, man.
Mhm.
All right.
Histogram you can hide, but all the other ones are right here. Tell you what, while we're here and while Rob's looking, Chuck, I didn't cover this last night, but this is actually pretty important. So if you guys look at the histogram, you'll notice as I go along, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, who knows. There's 5 quadrants in here. Guess what these correspond to? They correspond to highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. So as you move the highlight, oh wait a minute, I got the adjustment brush on, I'm sorry. Okay, so if you change the exposure, if you look up at the histogram, see everything on the right is shifting over to the left? So that's basically what the exposure does. Watch what happens when I click on the highlights. See how it's taking that section towards the right side, but not right? It's kind of pulling everything to the left, but it's not jerking everything that was on the far right, which is the whites over here. So if you kind of play with this a little bit, you can see how the histogram is actually moving all your colors and everything within the photograph. It's pretty cool, actually.
Yep.
Where I'm going with this is a real good indication of how your colors and your exposure is jacked up. Here's the reason why I'm telling you. If you push this way and you have a lot of stuff here that's right on the edge going up, I'm going to click on the adjustment. If you notice this stuff over here went blue.
Yep.
I asked Lightroom to tell me what in this photograph has gone absolutely black. And I'm going to take this stuff and push it to the right. And I'm going to say, Lightroom, tell me everything that has gone completely white. In other words, it has no value at all. And that would be the sky. So you can turn these on and off. Chuck, I'm glad we did this again. I didn't cover this last night. And you and I know we can kind of go back. And then using history, I can just kind of throw everything I just did all that wild stuff away. So this is where we are right now. So we've used the crop tool, we've cropped it down, we're getting ready to use the adjustment brush. So Rob, I'm going to click on the adjustment brush on my screen. Which of the settings in here would you recommend that I use to lighten that area underneath the Marietta welcome sign? We want it to be lighter.
Shadows,
I'm sorry, say again?
lighten the shadows.
Yeah, bring the shadows up. That's a good one. What's another good one? It's the one everyone uses almost every time.
Exposure?
Yeah, I'd use exposure and just have some fun over here. So
And you
I'm
can
coming
do that,
through.
and it's gonna, and you can do that, and it's just gonna do it in the area that you've selected,
Yep, that's the reason why it's called the adjustment brush.
adjustment brush. Yeah, okay,
It's
yeah,
only
yeah.
it's only what's on your paintbrush. Okay, so I did it once, just like Hilo said. If I click again and go back over the area, will it do anything or does it add to the effect?
That's to the effect.
Yep. So I'm going to kind of jump it a little bit by dialing up the exposure and the shadows just a little bit. And I think that's probably okay. But Rob, I'm noticing that this other building needs to be brought up just a little bit too, and the sidewalk, but not as much. So what do I have to do to the adjustment brush to shake out the paint and then just apply some new set of exposures to the next effort?
Click
Two things I
new,
do. Click on,
click on new.
yep. And then how do I shake all the paint and reset the sliders?
Double click.
Yep, you got it. So this time I'm going to stick with just one and maybe shadows just a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of go over the building. See how it's just a little bit more subtle than the other one? And I'm going to kind of go around the walkway just a little bit to lighten it up and do whatever.
Wow.
And that's it. Now I'm going to show you one I didn't show you yesterday. So Hylos and Chuck, do you have your seatbelt on?
Ready?
This is cool. So I'm going to click new. I'm going to click effect to double click it. I'm going to do the exposure about 2 so you can see the effect. This is good enough. I'm going to make my brush go really small. If you notice, I'm going to do something with these rail tracks. I'm going to make that strip be, so rather than sitting here and trying to get it straight, watch what happens when I click once, hold down the shift key, click again. Bing, bada, boom. A straight
wow.
line.
It brightened it, yeah.
So I'm going to click once. I'm just going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go back a little bit so you guys can see the effect that it does not happen down here. You guys see how it lightened everything right up to that point?
Mhm.
I can make it really light so you can see it right there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's something I didn't show you guys last night. I kind of forgot. So you click once, hold down the shift key, and wherever you click again, it's going to draw a straight line and apply the size of the brush and whatever settings that you have right there. It's really, really nice. If you have something like a door frame that you want to kind of lighten up just a little bit, I know you're really not seeing it exactly right now, but it is happening. Let me jerk it up. See how you can see it right there?
Oh, yeah.
So really a great tool. I apologize for not showing you guys this yesterday. Great tool. Okay, you guys cool with it? One more thing I'd like to do, and that's take care of the sky. So just kick back and watch this one. I'm going to click
Okay.
on new. I'm going to click on effect. So I'm shaking all the stuff out of my brush. And with the adjustment brush, I'm going to open it up just a little bit. You guys can see I'm opening it up right there. Now, remember before, at the very bottom, we clicked on this thing that said auto mask. I did not show you this last night, Chuck, so this is new information for you as well. With auto mask, when you're painting, if it's within the first circle, it will paint it. If it's kind of outside of it on the feather zone or something like that, it doesn't apply the effect. So if you're doing something like the edge of a building or something like that, this is really, really a nice tool to kind of have right here. So I'm going to go up to the edge of the building, and I'm not really, guys, what I'm going to do here, just to make it a little bit more obvious, I'm going to drop the exposure all the way down so you can see right away what I'm doing. And you and I both know that I don't have to leave it like this. So I'm just going to kind
Yeah.
of go around. Sometimes you have to cheat a little bit and go into the trees and stuff like this. And now I'm going to open up my brush a little bit, go back and forth. Personally, I think this is a little bit harsh on
Very harsh.
the screen, but guess what? Remember, I'm doing -4. That's not good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back the exposure and see how you can kind of control how much blue you want.
Mhm.
Let me show you two other things. Ways to work with your sky is to lower the temperature. Things get bluer if you go this way, right?
Interesting.
So I just
Uh-huh.
tip it down just a little bit. And the other area you can be looking at is saturation. So if you increase saturation, obviously the blues will get bluer. So I'm just trying to let you guys know there's a couple ways of just kind of fishing this just a little bit. So
Yeah.
I still have paint in my paintbrush. So I'm going to go through and cheat a little bit and do this edge a little bit nicer. Open it up and do the middle as well. And there you go. So here's what it looked like before. And here's what it looked like after. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. Wow.
One
Okay,
thing you did,
on this third image, it's not going to take nearly as long, but it's really cool. Chuck, I think, got really excited with this one. How many times have you guys taken a picture and you find that you left a book or an umbrella in the photograph and you want to get rid of it?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, you guys there?
Yep.
Okay. Let's
Okay.
go ahead and use, which of the tools here, Chuck, will we use?
well, you want to use the straightening first.
Oh,
So you
first.
do the
And that's
cropping
fine.
first.
That's absolutely fine. Okay. Remember we went to transform.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, transform.
Yeah, and that's fine. You're doing great. And we wanted to go on a guided tour, right?
Right.
So, guys, if you want, you can click on auto and it really works in like 80, 90% of the situations. But if you look at the very top, see how that brick wall kind of starts out and kind of runs down at an angle from the top?
Yeah.
Click in auto is very good about straightening things like gazebos, doorways like this, but it's also got to work with this as well. So this is where you want to use the guided function. So Chuck, help me get through it. I'm going to click on guided.
Right. Okay, then you find a spot that we want to do the railing first.
Yep.
You click there and then click to the other end of it. And then you go to the middle of the door, the opening, there you go. Top and the bottom. And there you go.
See how it's already started figuring out what I want to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I forgot what other spot.
Yeah, remember up at the very top?
Yeah.
What happened, guys, is typically when you shoot photographs of doors or things that are straight and they're kind of tilted in and out, you can fix that with the auto. The problem with this one is Joy shot it at an angle. So the difference is just not this and this, it's also back and forth. So
Right.
that's kind of the problem with this one. So if we tell Lightroom, hey, I want you to work on the perspective as well. Where am I?
Bring it down. There you,
Is this right?
yep, there you go.
And I'm going to do one more like Marge said last night. She was saying the right side was off a little bit, so I'm going to true up this guy too. And bing bada boom.
Yep.
If your mama could see you now. I mean, is that cool?
That is cool.
That's great.
Okay, so I'm going to click done. And so Chuck, going back to the tool you talked about, the spot removal, can you help me through this one?
We want to get rid of the lights.
Okay. So Rob, what I'm doing is I'm using the spot removal. And we had a little bit of a discussion on this last night between clone and heal. If you look over here for the spot removal, you
Yeah.
have the option of cloning or healing. If you just want to pick up everything, the texture, the color, the intensity, and everything, and apply it to another area, cloning is the way to go. But if you want to be a little bit more cool about it, I would recommend you start off with heal first and then kind of work with cloning. So we were on heal, so we're looking good. So Chuck, how do I get rid of these big bad boys?
And make your circle just a little bit bigger.
Oh, a little bit bigger. Okay. I'm
There.
sorry, my bad. Okay, so a little bit bigger. Okay, we're there. Oh, I see what you mean. We're going to do a knockout punch, huh?
Right. Okay, click.
So if you notice right now, see how you can still see it?
Right.
Now I did this on purpose because there's a slider over here called opacity. Watch what happens to those lights when I move the opacity closer to 100%.
Yep.
Gone. Rob, you're on. We got an umbrella that needs to go away. Tell me how to do this.
Okay, well, you gotta select your spot removal.
Okay.
Okay, and now you're gonna use the heal.
Okay. And I just painted over it. And I let go of the mouse. Guys,
Okay, mouse.
Guys, I swear to God, this tool is something out of third grade. So I'm sitting here clicking on this. Look at where it's drawing the information from. On the green door and the railings. For God's sake, what I'm doing is I'm dragging that area it's getting the information from. And guess what? I'm just going to put it on the same level as the curb down here. I'm going to release it and bing bada boom. Done. Easy. Easy peasy. If you don't like it, you can click on this and then you can kind of play around with this slider a little bit and move it to another area. So I just want to let you know you can always move this around just a little bit if it doesn't feel right. There you go. So I'm going to click on the sharpen tool, or I could double click. In this case, I'm just going to click on the tool. And there you go. So to clean this up just a little bit, so you've noticed the adjustment brushes are off. So I'm going to lighten this just a little bit. I'm looking at the histogram, nothing's going crazy. I'm going to open up the shadows just a little bit more. But here's a nice touch that I want you guys to kind of think about. Remember I told you clarity makes the blacks go blacker and the whites whiter? So it just makes it, so it kind of makes what's in the gap brighter. There's times you want to use it and other times you don't. Tell me if you think we should use it now.
Yes. That looks good.
Okay, you ready for this one? This is called dehaze. When we talked about it last night, Rob, I remember Angie had a picture she took in Montana of the mountains
I
way
sure
in the
did.
distance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Oh, definitely.
this is her tool. When I did,
Yeah.
her eyes got this big last night. It's called dehaze.
Yeah.
And you know what? Dehaze just adds a little bit of a snap, like a contrast snap, just a little bit. I'm going to go all the way and it'll get ugly. But if I
Wow.
back it off just a little bit, it just adds a kind of a nice little feel about it. And the last thing I want to bring to your attention, of course you could use saturation, and of course you can use vibrance. All I recommend is you guys just be kind of cool and try not to go overboard. So one thing I want to bring to your attention, the question I had was when Photoshop introduced this about 4 or 5 years ago, why do we have a vibrance when we have a saturation? The Photoshop engineers were getting a boatload of questions from people who use this to shoot weddings or whatever, who wanted to take a scene that the couple was in and they wanted to pop the colors just a little bit, but they wanted to leave flesh colored alone. That's when you use the vibrance tool. The vibrance tool is a saturation without the flesh color tones. And saturation does everything to include fresh colored tones. So whenever I fool with this stuff, I typically do vibrance first, and you can have a little bit of fun with it. If you look right here, notice how those green doors are just popping? Ah, nice. If my mama could only see me now.
Pat, I have a question.
Sure.
When you're doing with like the spot removal and things like that, can you magnify the picture that you're working with so you have more detail instead of?
Sure. Remember, originally we clicked on the fit and the 100% up here?
Yes.
Watch what happens when I click anywhere. So to your point,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, you can remember we clicked. Now, if you guys want to, you can do Control minus, and that's fine, and Control plus to kind of zoom in that way. Or sometimes you can just click and drag to the right. I've never been able to quite figure out when this happens, but whatever. What I like to do is just click once, and then here's the problem. Once you do a different setting, you have to go back and click on fit once, click on 100% once, and now whenever you click on the photo, it goes in between the two views. So Chuck, I find this one to be really, really good to get in and kind of look at the details. Okay, you guys cool with it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kind of talk about what I gave you as a handout. So we talked about the library module. We covered just about everything on that. And then we went into the library module where we talked about the folder system. I didn't go into much detail other than telling you about keywords and how to search, because we're going to do a little bit more with the folder system in session 2 or 3. I don't know which one yet. Down here on the film strip, which is very similar to the old days when we had a light table. And remember how you used to lay your negatives out on the light table and you had a loop? You could go down and look at the image. So that's where this term loop comes from when you're just looking at the one in the center. We talked about keywords. We talked about the histogram and how it kind of gives you information of how your photo looked originally, and how when you're doing all the changes that it just kind of changes, it reflects all the changes that you're doing. So it's just giving you a little bit more information. We didn't talk about presets, and we did talk about history over here on the left side. We're going to talk about the other stuff next week with the presets. It's good. I'm glad it's there. It gives you a chance to kind of think a little bit about how to do things differently. But this course is all about teaching you how to learn the basic wheels to turn and whatever. I just don't want to take you to presets and say you're done. That's not how we work. So histogram, again, your best friend. When you're working an image, if you notice, one of the first things we did was we went in and we cropped. So we're saying, okay, I got an image here. I need to straighten it up. Remember, we straightened it up based on the veggie basket behind. And then we cropped down a little bit more. Rob, remember how you tightened it on the sides to make it nice and balanced. And then we applied an overall exposure to it. and we used the sharpening tool to kind of sharpen everything. And then we went back through, we did the adjustment brush, which was the local, and we sharpened some more and we darkened the straw basket a little bit more. And we did all that with the adjustment brush. So right here is this, and Chuck, just like you said at the very bottom here, when you guys hit that reset button, it's just like jumping all the way down to whenever you opened up the image or you exported the last time. And that's what happened. So it's a quick way to wipe it out. But Chuck, when you did it, did you do it on purpose or did you do it by mistake?
Misdirect.
Yeah, and that's typically when I do it. It's like, my God, why did I do that? Then we kind of looked through and we talked about the local adjustments, which we just talked about, are all right here. With Chuck, I added these to the PDF to make it a little bit easier to see what's a local adjustment. And we talked about some of the sizes and the sliders. 30 is a good rule. Go beyond that at your own risk, but you'll find out you can. And Chuck, I added this one here, auto mask. Always leave this check marked. If it's not, it stays on forever unless you turn it off. But in my situation, it was off, so whatever. This range mask, we're going to cover that next week. So we went into the tool, all the things we talked about right here. The one thing I didn't talk about was when you do a selection and you want to take away from it, that you would use the Alt, hold down the Alt button, and then continue to paint over what you want to bring back in. And we talked about the mask as well. We will cover this in the second and the third session, so please don't worry about it. So at this point, Rob, we showed how to use Photoshop down here in the blue. It's a great way. If you think of our course title, it's Lightroom Classic Basics and When to Use Photoshop. So what I did was an additional side trip here to where we jumped into Photoshop. Everything I did is right here, and you just kind of play along with it. Chuck, there's a couple of different word changes I did here. Like I added Control D turns off the, and I used the term marching ants, which is what we tend to use with Photoshop. And doing that. Rob, here is an example of what it looked like originally on the left side.
Okay. Yeah.
This middle one is what we did when we sharpened the image. Remember how we darkened the basket and the peppers just a little bit? And then we went
Yes.
through a lot darker on the outside on the metal. So that's what Lightroom did. And then finally, when we jumped into Photoshop, this is where we did that very cool selection tool, and then we inverted it, and then we filled that with black. So that's what it looked like. So just let you
Cool.
know, depending on
That's cool.
what you want to do, Lightroom and Photoshop will work for you. You just need to know when to kind of do it. Chuck, I don't think I added anything here than saying just check and make sure that you had the auto mask on. So when you look at the settings you had, just make sure you got the check mark done as well. So that's the only thing I added on this page.
One thing you didn't tell Rob was when you straightened the track, it had a perfect diagonal from the bottom of the screen up. You didn't mention that. From the finished picture after you cropped it.
Yeah.
straightened it up.
Let me ask a question on the troughs. Did you lighten up the top of the rails? Was that what you were
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That-
that's exactly what I did.
Because you got those nice leading lines in there, and that really.
Yeah, see how they just kind of pop at you? So here's Joy's original out. I'm going to make it even easier for you. So I'm going to click on the adjustment brush. I'm going to new effect. It looks like it's already that way. I'm going to bump the exposure up to 3. So it's really going to pop you in the face. I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. I'm going to hold down the shift key. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to click once, hold down the shift key and click here. See how it just lightened it? Okay, let me go up to 4 and you'll see it a lot better. So I'm going to click once, hold down shift key. Are you
Yeah.
guys seeing how it lightened it?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to do it right here on the sign. It's going to pop crazy. So I'm going to click once, hold down shift, click on the end, and there's the sign. See how it suddenly got brighter? So holding down the shift key just means instead of sitting there trying to be straight with your hand, which is crazy for a long
Right.
distance,
Yeah.
you just hold down the shift key and it'll do it for you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. That's a good thing to restate there. Let me make a note, and I'll go ahead and add to the PDF. Okay.
Are we
so,
about out? Should I stop the record now? Or are we?
I'm almost finished. Might as well keep going, I guess.
Okay.
So here is, again, before and after. I think this is something Joy could have turned into competition with leading lines or diagonals or whatever. Here's the door we worked on. Here's before. Here's after. I talked a little bit about this, but Chuck was here. We talked about it last night. We're done. So Rob, you're going to give me a chance to sell you on Lightroom, huh?
Yes.
Okay. So
And then
we're all set. We don't need to go through it. If you want to, there's a little bit of an explanation about the pros and cons of each of them. Hylos, since the first Lightroom, I added the section on Capture One because I'm finding out Capture One is now being touted as the Lightroom replacement. So I just added that. Okay, guys.
Wait a minute. You said it's a replacing Lightroom?
Yeah, it's just a tool, and the reviews I've read said that Capture One is much quicker in importing your images and running on it. But you know, it's one of those things. 6 months from now, Adobe will come out with those apps faster, and then Capture One's going to do something, and then Lightroom's going to do it. So
Okay, but Capture One's not Adobe.
yeah, it's not.
Okay, I was wondering, because I got supposedly getting all the updates and I haven't seen that before.
Yeah. So on this one, if you notice, if you get Lightroom and Photoshop, it's $10. I think
Right.
you guys know that every month. With this one, it's $19 a month. Or you can buy a license for $199. But here's where they get you. So Rob, when you have Photoshop Elements, if you like the 2001 version, you're happy with it, Photoshop Elements may be the way to go. But if they come out with a new version for 2022 and it's got some cool features that you want, guess what you got to do?
Yeah.
Yep, you got to buy a new Photoshop Elements, which I think runs about 100 or 100 and a quarter. So
Okay. Buy a whole new program.
I'm not sure which is the right answer. I'm just letting you guys know that there's options out there. That's it. Well, Rob, it was good letting us run through this again. Like Hilo said, we're able to capture it, which is a good thing. And this way, if we get a new member who comes in and wants to join 61 days to better photography within the next week or two, we can catch them up that way, and it's really good. Hylos, again, thank you for letting us host.
Oh, you're welcome.
So